feels like we're getting into this cul-de-sac in America where it's like, is there a lot of value to my life? Am I just a cog in the wheel? Am I just a consumer? Is there any, what is the purpose for me? I think a lot of people are starting to ask themselves that.
Yeah. I call that the meaning crisis. And I think there's good evidence that it's becoming very prevalent in the West, whatever that means these days, but sort of North America, Europe, Japan,
Hawaii,
Australia, things like that. And the symptoms are, you can sort of see symptoms of it all through the culture, and I've also seen a significant increase in the work I'm doing, both academically and in the public sphere. Especially since COVID. COVID really ramped a lot of these issues up for people in a powerful way.
What the issues of like questioning themselves, what's going on?
Yeah. So the thing, one of the interesting things that COVID did is it threw people back onto their inner life. And what's interesting is our culture, especially North American culture. Right. And I'm not the first to observe it. It has a high preponderance of a tendency towards narcissism, being very so people have oriented their lives in a very self-centered way, but they thought that, right. Or they can, maybe a better way of putting it, they confuse that with having deep, rich inner resources. And when everything sort of stopped and they couldn't focus the world on them and they had to focus on themselves, in order to find resources. And what you found was a bifurcation, like a division. Some people were like, whoa, that really threw them. So I'll say something to you, and I'm of two minds of it, because I'm happy about it as a scientist because I made a prediction, and I'm sad about it as a human being because it's not a good prediction. So just as the pandemic was hitting, I said, what you're going to get is you're going to get a rise in a term that Julian Evans made famous called conspirituality, this mixture of conspiracy theories and spirituality, and that took off. And then I said, as we come out of the pandemic, we'll get a mental health spike, and then a little bit later, sort of an increase in crime. And all of these things are coming to pass because what had happened is many people are thrown into the interior life only to realize for all of the self-centeredness, they've actually not given any wise attention to their inner life, and they were suddenly without resources. Other people saw this as an opportunity, and they framed it that way. And so what's been springing up were all of these online communities where people, not to sound too highfalutin or anything, but people started to say, I really want to cultivate wisdom. I mean, there's tons of information. There's a lot of bullshit mixed up with it. There's, there's all this stuff, and then there's science and that, but I want wisdom. And so, I've gotten involved with quite a few of these communities. So there's both, you have both negative and positive symptoms in the culture. The number of close friends people have is reliably declining, even for all of our social internet connections. Loneliness is becoming epidemic, and loneliness is it's very unhealthy. We are naturally social, cultural beings, and loneliness is
it's becoming a hobby too for some people in a way. It's becoming almost so common that it's like, or not common, but it's common, I guess. And once you start to become something, there's a part of you that will want to find the most organized way to be it and to engage in it.
Yes.
So even in loneliness, it's almost becoming a culture, It
is, but it's a culture with great cost. We have weird things happening. Like the UK has set up a ministry of loneliness, which sounds like something out of Orwell, right? Like the ministry of loneliness.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, how did we get there?
Yeah, it sounds like an Ozzy Osbourne album.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how he would say that. Ministry of loneliness.
Sharon! Yeah, I don't know. He probably would get one of his kids to say, I don't even know if he can talk anymore. But yeah, well, so to go back, so you're looking at, so when you look at so COVID, you're saying had was an opportunity or caused a lot of us to interflect. Or
Yes.
like look inside of ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. And some people did it like in a healthy way.
Yes.
Where they kind of looked inside of themselves and were like, wow, I haven't looked in here in a while. I'm going to find ways to challenge myself and see what's going on here.
Yeah.
I'm going to join other groups and people that are curious about their inner self.
Yes.
And then the other group, what happened?
Well, I mean, a lot of them sort of fell into the things that were already at work in the culture. The meaning crisis predates COVID by like centuries. But you saw a rise in mental health issues. So depression and anxiety have gone up, and they have continued to increase. And this is quite independent of how affluent. So Silicon Valley has a tremendous problem with depression and anxiety. Here are the people who are supposed to be at the pinnacle of our society. You
Right.
know, we idolize them, right? And yet their kids are in trouble, and they're in trouble in certain ways.
Have we always, throughout time, have people always searched for meaning in their life?
Yes.
Has it always been like, are we at like because we were, like you're saying that COVID kind of put us in this place where it kind of put us in a fast forward of people really going to start to look at that because the fabric of society kind of stopped and paused. And so you're left with yourself, really.
Yeah.
But people have always looked for meaning.
That's exactly right. I mean, so in the series I did, and in the book on zombies, the book is the idea that zombies are a myth that arose to try and give people an image of the meaninglessness in their lives. But we talked about two kinds of issues. One are what we call like perennial problems. Like you said, there's issues that human beings always have confronted, and we can get into why that might be the case. And then there's also historical factors that have been growing since the late Middle Ages and accelerating, and things have, there's been a lot of major things that are accelerants on those historical forces. And what happens is the historical forces sort of undermine like you said, the cultural fabric that normally helps people to address the perennial problems. And then what happens is you get a vicious cycle. The perennial problems get worse. The social fabric tears more. The perennial problems and you start to spiral.
And that's where it feels like kind of like we're at.
Yes.